Namaste. Welcome to India Calling. Stories from spiritual travelers from across the globe. Today we have with us Natalie, all the way from Australia. Natalie has been coming to India since 2007, and she is also a yoga teacher, and she has also been bringing a lot of people to India as well. Today we are going to talk with her experiences of being in India, what brought her to India, and what is her plans for the future. Natalie, thank you so much for joining the show. I
Yeah.
want to straight away take you to your first step. How did everything start in India for you?
Hi, Sabine. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it was nearly 20 years ago now that I took my first journey to India, and it was a real calling. I had been practicing yoga for a couple of years, and my teachers at the time were part of a parampara lineage. And so I really felt the call to go to the source of India, the source of yoga in India, in Mysore, it was at the time. And so on my journey to Mysore, I landed in Bangalore, and I had a couple of nights in Bangalore. I was staying at a really sweet bed and breakfast place with some lovely hosts. And I was determined to put myself out there and not just stay in the confines of the bed and breakfast. So I asked the owners if they could get me a car and a driver for the day so that I could go and explore Bangalore. And the driver said to me, "So what would you like to do?" And at that time there was no internet, there was no mobile phones. I had a Let's Go Guide India, I think, something like that. And I remember I turned to the temples page in Bangalore, and it said, gave me a list of the temples. So I started to read out these temple
Wow,
names to my driver.
wow,
And he was making various comments as I was going through the list. And I got to this one particular Krishna temple. And I said, "How about this one?" And he said, "No, madam." He said, "You do not want to go there today. It's Krishna's birthday. This temple will be very busy." And I said, "That's exactly where I want to go."
wow.
So it turns out it was Janmashtami, the Krishna's birthday, which is a massive celebration for
Yeah,
Krishna
yeah,
devotees.
yeah.
And here I was, the only white-skinned person that I saw when I got to the temple. There were over 100,000 people through this temple on the day. And before I even got in, my very first surrender lesson happened, in that I had to take not just my shoes, but I had to leave my bag and all of my carry-ons in the check-in, which was just a little bamboo hut outside the temple. And in return, I was given a little cardboard ticket number, no, to hold. And at that moment, I went, wow, here I am. No, camera, passport, money, everything was in my bag, left at the check-in. And barefoot, I went in the temple and in and through this incredible experience of devotion and food and people and friendship. And I came out the other end about 3 hours later with my little cardboard ticket that I'd been gripping onto, and handed it across the counter, and this very big smile greeted me, and all of my things were handed back. And so, I love that, because it was really just an immersion straight away into how India is. In that, if you try to control things and if you want it to be the way that keeps you comfortable, that will
Yeah,
not happen.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but if you go with it, and I really learned that if I trusted and surrendered and went with what was, that I would be looked after. And yeah, 20 years
Wow.
later, I'm still going back to India. So yeah.
That's that's quite some level of surrender that happened because one of the common question that we get from travelers, during the time of travel in India is my luggage safe? Is my things safe because of the stories that they have heard about India and so on, right? Like, how was that whole experience of first making the decision of going into a Krishna temple to the entire 3.5 hours of wait and walking out? How would you, like, looking back, how would you describe that feelings that you were having at that time? And how has it been?
Yeah, yeah. Good question. I mean, there was definitely fear, and some trepidation I was experiencing at the time, but the greater message of what I had been practicing through yoga of trust and surrender also really spoke to me. And, living yoga was something that was really important to me from a place of integrity. And so I was willing to give it a go. But also everyone that I had learnt from, both in terms of people who travelled to India and back, no one had ever spoken of a bad experience where they'd been pickpocketed or had anything stolen, and that's also been my experience. Touch wood. Many people say to me, "Oh, isn't India safe? Is it unsafe? And do you feel scared? And do you feel overwhelmed?" And I don't. In fact, I find the opposite. I feel incredibly held. I find the people very friendly and willing to help in any way. And I've not ever encountered any issues of my personal safety feeling threatened or having anything stolen, or if I've lost a towel on the beach, I've gone back 2 hours later and it's still sitting in the spot that I left it. It's really, and especially around temples and ashrams where you do need to take your shoes off and you do need to be mindful about how you are and carrying very minimal things. These are very, in my experience, very safe places, and I think that's part of the beauty of India, this level of safety that one can experience even amidst crowds like we've never experienced outside of India. So in the chaos, there is some quite unique, it's more than safety, I would say a sense of feeling at home and a sense of being held.
Beautiful. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is what made you stay. In the sense, like, usually people come for 1 month, 40-day yoga course and so on. But you stayed 6 months the first time you came. How did that happen? And because that's like massive. Day to day, your conditioning, everything is being questioned, and, you rewire yourself. And that's significant time to observe India in an entirely way, right? Like, so,
Mm.
talk to us
Mm.
about that.
Yeah. Well, I knew initially that I was staying for 3 months because that was the length of time I'd requested to study at the Ashtanga Yoga Research Institute. In those days, I'd had to write a letter to Guruji and to say that I was coming. So the 3 months were already set, and I just left space. And I think after those 3 months, I knew that there'd been quite some transformation and I wanted to stay on that journey. So it was fairly easy once I was open to that to listen to what others were doing and to be open to advice about where I might go next or what I might explore. And so through conversations with other Westerners and a little bit of my own online exploration, I also journeyed to Tiruvannamalai for the first time and also to Goa. And both of those places also very welcoming and very easy to stay in. I think Goa was kind of like the halfway last place I went before I went back to Australia, and it had the beach, and that gave a sense of softening to my experience, I think, to that. But yeah, I think there was just such a richness to what I was experiencing, and yeah, I just knew on some level I needed to stay. But I will never forget how it was when I went home. I wasn't quite prepared for how it would be when I got home. And I remember pulling into my driveway and looking at my house and opening the front door and bursting into tears and not really knowing how I was going to live in this house like I had before, with a house full of belongings and, quite isolated from the communities I'd been living in. And so coming home was its own challenge, but certainly nothing that I regretted.
Yeah, yeah. You also said you instantly felt that India would be home. For someone who has never experienced India, that feeling about a place. How do you describe that feeling of yours? Where do you think that feeling comes from?
It's a mystery. maybe a past life. Yeah, I think, just as humans, we all find places on the planet where we feel this undescribable innate sense of belonging or being. One of my early yoga teachers said to me, if you were sitting here with me studying yoga philosophy on a Friday night, then chances are you've also practiced yoga in a past life rather than sitting, at the pub 3 doors down like most other people. So I think there is definitely some energetic pull in that sense. But also I feel that the depth of antiquity and the depth of Shraddha, I would say in Sanskrit, this faith that comes through the Vedic traditions and the Vedic way of life. There is something about our human nature that really understands that when we are silent enough to spend time in places where we witness ritual and we experience devotion and we witness others in practice and in temples. There is a part of us that recognizes that devotion. And I feel that in much of our West we have become devoid of that in our day-to-day life. And certainly for me it was refreshing to go back to this. There was a part of me that had longed for this way of living, and so it was just an innate pull. It was not to say that it was always easy. India challenged me in many, many ways and continues to, but underneath that there is a deep reverence for life in
Mm,
India.
mm. Um, um, Stepping off a bus, I mean, taking a bus and going to Tiruvannamalai.
Mm.
And what was your feeling, when you entered Tiruvannamalai as a space? And walk us through the overall experience that you had in Tiruvannamalai itself. What all do you get to do, and the ashrams that you stayed, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had heard about Ramana, and I had met people who had gone to Ramana's ashram, and I was very curious to go to Tiru. So I took a 5-hour bus journey from Chennai, and a Bollywood movie was blaring for 5 hours in this bus. It was quite a journey in and of itself.
It's not
And
Bollywood; it's Tamil movie. We get offended for it.
yeah, it was in Tamil. Yes, it would have been in Tamil. Yes, correct, correct. But I couldn't understand a thing, and I think the rest of
Yeah.
the bus loved it. But I was just, yeah, it was noise. It became white noise in the end. It was very, very entertaining. But when I I managed to communicate to the driver that I wanted to be dropped off outside the Raman ashram, and he assured me he would. And so when the bus stopped and he indicated this is where I was to get off, dragging my suitcase down the bus, and the doors opened and I stepped out. And as I stepped out onto this very dusty, quite plain kind of road, nothing special. There was quite an energetic experience I had, and there was a really powerful voice that I heard speak to me, and it said, "This is why you've come to India. This is why you've come to India." In those precise words, I've not never forgotten it. And what that was is a mystery, but that was my welcome to Tiru. And so the energy of Arunachala, of Ramana, of Shiva, we could say, perhaps was what I was experiencing. But, like all great saints, even though they may leave their body, their aroma, their perfume lingers. And the Ramanashram in Tiruvannamalai is quite a special place. The level of devotion that is upkept in that in the temple and in the main temple and in the ashram grounds and up to Ramana's caves and Arunachala. I mean, the pilgrimage that you can go to walk around Arunachala, especially on full moon, is also quite an incredible experience. Yeah, and I've done that circambulation a couple of times, and each time I remember you get to know the people that you're walking with, and other pilgrims and devotees and children and sadhus, and it's quite an experience. Yeah, unforgettable, Tiruvannamalai is.
Wow, beautiful. When was the last time you came to Tiruvannamalai?
Oh, good question. Last time would have been maybe in 2016, 2017,
Okay.
around there.
If you come now, the Paurnami Girivalam, the full moon Girivalam,
Yeah.
is now tripled or four times more than what it used to be.
Really?
The crowd and the number of
Wow.
shops. So
Wow.
it is not the same. You will not find empty stretches anymore.
Actually, interesting. It was a 14-kilometer walk last time I was there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. It's the same.
Yeah. The first time I went, though, it was just at the tail of the monsoon, and it had been raining for 3 days straight, and it was mud everywhere. And the first time I visited, I couldn't walk, and
Wow.
I remember I was staying in a room in the Ramana ashram, and it was cold, like cold for India. And I remember waking up one morning and feeling cold, but hearing some noises outside my room, and I wasn't sure what was going on, and opened my door and looked outside, and here were three men with this hot water cart and buckets, bringing buckets of hot water into everybody in their rooms. And I remember just feeling so grateful for this hot water, because it was it's just bucket baths, no
Yeah,
shower,
yeah.
just bucket bath with a saucepan. And I remember feeling how grateful I was to have that hot water.
Nice.
And that's possibly the same. That maybe hasn't changed.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't be surprised, yeah, if it is not changed yet, because that's how. But
Yeah.
talking about water, that reminds me to ask you about Ganga. I
Mm.
know that's one of the things that you love about being in India, So talk to us about your relationship with Ganga.
Yeah, Ganga Ma. So Ganga, or the Ganges River, much more than a river, really a being of energy and nourishment. Again, I had been chanting different mantras, evoking Ganga for many years before I'd seen the Ganga. And the first time I laid eyes on the water, I burst into tears. It was quite an overwhelming experience. Just this relief of feeling some current of flow or some current of nourishment. Again, it's quite hard to describe the experience. Yeah, but there's something special about a body of water that is worshipped and that is revered, and you really do sense that there is an aliveness and a carriage to the water, and that it's not just water, that this is a purification and an enlivening and a healing. And so, I think if one is prepared to drop into that sense of devotion and to offer whatever might be unhealed and whatever might be unseen or unrecognized to Ganga, then chances are there will be some reciprocity or experience. But again, this mystery of Ganga flowing from Shiva's dreadlocks, and it blows the mind, really, to even consider that is possible. Yeah.
India can feel overwhelming for a lot of people, not for the ones who navigate often. You also bring a lot of people from Australia and around the globe to India, your students and people from your friends and so on. Now, what are the initial fears that you see people who come with you deal with? And what are the first things that dissolve when they come to India?
Firstly, the people. I mean, everywhere one goes, there are just people everywhere, and it's front, back, and center. So the personal space is something that I like to explain or share about. Another thing would be the sensory overload. So the colors, the smells, the textures, the incredible chaos and busyness that one sees, and that our nervous system is exposed to is next level for any Westerner. So going gently, I say, go out and experience it, dive in, but don't spend too long amongst crowds in the first few days. Go back and have some quiet time in the hotel or sitting by a pool, or to really gently temper oneself, because our nervous systems are not used to that level of chaos and exposure. But an interesting thing I've found that's happened in my own journey over the years is that chaos becomes an addiction. So, I really love that now, and there's nothing more I love than going into a temple and kind of jostling my way in, and it becomes part of feeling at home in India to have that the complete assault of the senses. And so yeah, my advice to anyone going to India would be to go gently initially, to really ease yourself in so that you're not overwhelmed. Because if you try and go in, or I hear of some people going on these crazy tours where they do 10 cities in 20 days, and that is just so much. I mean, India is already so much to experience, even if you stayed in one place the whole time. And indeed, that's how I run my groups. At the moment, we stay in one place, we immerse ourselves, we have a chance to anchor and ground, and then I feel like the hidden beauty can then emerge when you have a chance to have the deeper conversations with people you might meet, and to go to down the alley, to explore down the alleys where you might intuitively be drawn. Those things are all really there. And there is a synchronicity that happens in India, but there needs to be enough space for that to also unravel. So yeah, I think after a while you find your way, and then coming back home to Western life becomes the adjustment and not the other way around.
You've also been to Varanasi. Tell us, sitting there in Varanasi, the ghats, or just walking around the ghats, what shifted?
Yeah, I think my relationship with death and dying really shifted in Varanasi. I wasn't expecting to experience the reverence of life that I did in Varanasi, and the reverence of those who were working in the ghats. I have a photograph I took of one of the workers who was just squatting down on the edge of one of the boats that come right up to where the burning ghats are. And he was just resting, just pausing, and I captured something in his eyes which was quite beautiful, and it was it's kind of like a timelessness and a beauty and a reverence for what was going on around him. There wasn't any experience of distaste or disdain or dirtiness. There was a gentle pride in the ceremonial aspects that you can see in cremations. And yeah, I think nobody can quite prepare you for Varanasi. It's in a league of its own. The energy is so strong. And yeah, the Ganga at Varanasi has a different feel to the Ganga in Rishikesh, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got nudged by a cow. The one and only times the cow has got me was down an alley in Varanasi.
And Varanasi's cows are special. Yeah,
Yeah,
they have their rules.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Nandi, yeah, Nandi is Shiva's consort. So.
Superb.
Hmm.
Like, did you also develop relationship with what you can call it as gods of India or gurus of India? Talk to us about that, because I am assuming that is not very common. In Australia in general. Like, yeah. So
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think the average Western person has a very limited understanding of what it is to have an external form of God. And so, yeah, in India, I think learning about the expression of the divine in form is something that's quite special. And so to have a little bit of an appreciation that, God in many forms, male or female, or sometimes male and female, exists, and that there can be this relationship that is developed between a particular deity and oneself. And so over the years, there have been different deities that I feel are speaking to me and calling me. For example, when I spent the first few times going to the south of India, Shiva was really a strong influencer in my life. And so going on a pilgrimage through Shivratri to places like Chidambaram was really important and felt like it was something I really wanted to do. And then in more recent years, it's been, a calling to more femininity of the Ganga and of Lakshmi and of Durga. And so, it's quite beautiful to experience, the Shiva Shakti, the masculine and feminine, and the ways that divination unfolds. I think many people can relate to it once they have an understanding. And I think most people that go to India will find themselves taking photos of deities or pictures of deities, whether or not they really understand what they are or what they mean, but there will be something that will draw them to the beauty or the color or the expression on the face, the Kali eyes or whatever. Yeah, but I remember being I took a group on pilgrimage to Vrindavan a few years ago. And of course, Vrindavan is mostly a Krishna area, but there is this particular Durga temple in Vrindavan. And my group, we'd been there for quite a few days, and we'd been going to sacred places and doing the pilgrimage walks. And, Krishna Radha, the energy is very soft and very juicy and very beautiful. And there was a Durga temple that I had seen, and I said to my group, look, who would like to come to the Durga temple with me? So we made a little side visit and went to the Durga temple. And of course, the energy at this Durga temple was just on fire, and it was so strong and loud and full on, and there were drums, and we actually couldn't even get past the entrance because it was so much of an assault on where we'd been. And it was Durga in full flight. We just couldn't even go in. We ended up saying, look, this is going to be enough. But I think we had to leave. So yeah, I feel that, when the deities really speak with you, and when you have an appreciation of energy, to trust it, to not push yourself too far.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. True. Beautiful. Talking about gods, in Indian tradition, the other in Indian spiritual tradition, the other relationship that is part of the journey is the guru. Now, I'm sure India revealed the guru to you. So talk to us about the journey of being with the guru, and how it helps you. The words and no words time. How does it help?
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, wow. There is something about experiencing deep wisdom through a wise elder or through male or female. And, we all have those wise elders in our life, even in the West. And in India, this wise elder takes on even another form in the form of some divine knowledge or divine embodiment. And, in my own experience, the energy of a guru will speak before the guru does. And, to be in the presence of someone who has explored the fullness of their being and who shows up in that state of being is like a magnet, really. And it's a blessing that we have gurus available to guide. And it can be a little bit mind-blowing when you realize that actually the guru is really just pointing you back to your own divine nature. And when that voice of truth or that murmuring of truth begins to awaken through your own being, then the relationship with the guru changes. And yeah, there's no doubt that the places I have come to love the most in India are places where there has been a strong association with gurus, like the lineages in the Himalayas and the Himalayan masters, for example. And those living lineages really carry a lot of truth. And there are plenty of stories of false gurus and, Westerners getting led to places where they realize they shouldn't be. But I always say, trust your instinct. And, I've always enjoyed looking at a sangha, looking at the community that's surrounding a guru and looking at the people in that community and asking myself, are they people who I would like to associate with? Are they people who are caring and compassionate, who I could just ordinarily call friends? And that might be the first indication of whether there is some authenticity around a guru or not. But yeah, ultimately they say that without a guru, the journey of yoga is truly not possible. So
I also want to touch upon a lot of Western travelers come to India with the mindset of getting a guru, and they also get navigated into unpleasant or disturbing moments, right? And so, what would you advise a Western traveler on how to navigate this safely, this entire process?
yeah. Yeah. So as I just mentioned, really looking at the sangha, looking at the community that is around the guru, and having an honest assessment of those people. Are they people that show care and concern and compassion? Are they people that you would be happy to call friends or to associate with? And that might be the first inclination of whether there is some sense of safety to be around a guru. In my experience, the sangha and the gentleness and love of a sangha is a good sign. And I think, extremism in any form is something to be mindful of. I love in India that, almost anything goes, but anything that is too crazy, I think needs to be considered with some skepticism. There is a middle path that can be found, and most Westerners will feel okay with some form of middle path. Yeah, but listen wisely, trust your instinct, be prepared to ask questions, and if you don't feel cared for and supported, then I would suggest that's something to not ignore.
Yeah. Along those lines, I would also ask one more question to you, since you've been coming to India since 2007 and you've done a lot of yoga related trainings here. What would you suggest for any Western traveler or anyone outside of India to go about their yoga teacher training certification or yoga? If somebody who is interested in yoga, how do they start?
Yeah. Well, the authenticity of yoga is about a relationship with the heart. So going from the head to the heart. So my advice to anyone who is interested to explore yoga as a yoga teacher is to trust the resonance that they may or may not have with a teacher, and that resonance is the most important criteria. So it doesn't matter what anyone else would say, who anyone else might recommend. If there isn't a resonance that you feel personally with the teacher, then the teachings will not penetrate. So my advice would be to really research, to read from the teacher or the guru or the lineage holder, to read about them, to listen to them. These days at least we have YouTube where people can speak and listen to their voice and listen to the teachings. And if that's something that you resonate with, that really speaks to you, then that might be a yes. But I've had many stories from people, not so many that I know, because I would also share this way of finding a teacher, but those I've met on travels who really just dive in and choose something from a book or choose something from the internet or choose something because it's a really cheap course, I feel you may be disappointed with that. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can have a completely immersive, transformative experience. And fortunately, there are many, many very good lineages and teachers still available offering very good training. So do your homework, feel into the heart, and don't base your decision on availability and price.
Talk to us about anything that you would like to talk about, your India journey or your relationship with yoga, anything that I would have missed and you wanted to share.
Goodness.
Like, how is your relationship with, like yourself and your outbound has changed, ever since you took the path of yoga and, the yogic teacher journey, like with momentum coaching and yoga and stuff, right? Like, how has your journey itself changed, looking back, if you can share that.
Yeah. So I would say it's been a steady journey inwards. So where once upon a time my relationship with yoga might have been much more physically oriented, much more posture based, nearly 20 years on, it would be there is a depth of teachings and a depth of practice that I enjoy. So mantra and mudra and meditation and time in silence are really important aspects to the way that I live. I don't like to be too busy. In fact, I have a clear intention that the word busy is not something I say, that busy is a state of mind. And I think that, over these years, my state of mind is mostly not busy. There is space to appreciate truly what's in front of me, as my teacher would say, to meet the need of the hour is yoga. But to meet that with great wisdom and compassion is hopefully something that I do a little better now than what I once did. I hear myself sometimes saying to students that, especially about loving kindness or compassion, that I don't think I really ever knew what that meant until I had begun to practice yoga and meditation, until I had begun to give myself compassion or to be with myself in a compassionate, gentle way. I don't think I would have knew what that meant without yoga. So certainly that there's been a softening and there's been a quietening and a more subtle appreciation for life just the way it is, a more subtle understanding of the world in all its chaos and mess, but really appreciating that there is a bigger picture at play that we're a part of, but that ultimately is not under our control. So yeah, maybe I have a bit more of an acceptance of that mystery now than in my gung-ho 30-something years when yoga first came across my
Yeah,
path.
yeah, makes sense.
Mm.
Talk to us about your upcoming retreat and, what do you do at your retreat and, how can people book the retreat?
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this year I'm taking a pilgrimage to Rishikesh. I call Sacred India Yoga Pilgrimage. We start in Delhi, but we soon go to Rishikesh, and we're based in Rishikesh for 2 weeks, living in a guest house and spending time in ashrams and time by the Ganga, and really an opportunity to live in a devotional place. So to experience what life is like by the Ganga at the foot of the Himalayas. And then for the last 4 days of the pilgrimage, we have the opportunity to go further up the Ganga and spend time more secluded retreat center where we will explore quiet and silence and time with cows and bushwalks and Ganga dips. So I'm looking forward to that experience as just a beautiful deepening of the pilgrimage. So there are still 4 places left. We kick off in October. And it's open to both men and women. And I would say that it's most suitable for people who have, a sincere interest in yoga and a sincere interest in their own evolution. I wouldn't say it's something for beginners, but anyone who already is practicing yoga that has a curiosity about India and perhaps who wants to explore that in a group, in a beautiful, friendly group with some older, wiser company, then yeah, that might be something that your listeners are interested in.
I know you are a big believer in Shraddha. Talk to us about like if someone who's feeling the call towards India and keeps finding reasons not to go, what do you say to them?
Let India's call take you. Yeah. So I always say that the calling to India starts when you first hear it, and all of the obstacles that will come up for you are part of the challenge in you getting to India. For example, in 2019, just before COVID, my group was in India in October and November, and by the time December hit, we were in lockdown. And I remember saying to my group, if India calls you, say yes, because you truly don't know if this opportunity will happen again. We really don't know.
Yeah, yeah, very
And
true,
so,
very true.
and so I trust when I have the inspiration to pull together a program and a group, I truly trust that inspiration. And if I don't feel that inspiration, then it doesn't happen.
Yes,
And
yes,
so then I say, if anybody is truly called to go to India and something speaks to you, then that speaking means that you are ripe for transformation. So just say
yeah,
yes. Just
yeah,
say
yeah.
yes. But also
Sure.
be prepared that India will begin to test you and obstacles will come from even when you say yes.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I think the important lesson when you come to India is to cross those obstacles and take your rewards on the other side. That's the beauty of being in India.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Beyond those obstacles, which are mostly in the mind, but beyond those, there is a beauty and a joy that you cannot even begin to imagine
Yeah, yeah.
waiting for you. Yeah,
Very true. Thank you so much, Natalie, for joining us today and sharing your journey with us in detail. We really hope, we figure out ways to work together in the future and also have you again in the podcast to talk more about your journey in India. Meanwhile,
yeah.
wishing you the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you. It's been a joy. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. Super.